During the Arrancar arc, Ichigo had appeared to have been killed by Ulquiorra as Orihime sheds tears over his lifeless body, but then suddenly he grabs the ground as his hair starts to grow out, with a hollow mask forming on his face in the shape of a skull with those iconic horns appearing too. This is arguably one of the most chilling and hype-inducing transformations in all of Bleach. Orihime's desperate cries somehow reach Ichigo beyond death itself, but what appears at the end of it isn't quite Ichigo anymore, but something more instinctive, primal, and terrifying. This transformation had even shocked the 4th ranking Espada as Ichigo yells out "I will protect you" as he delivers one of the most brutal one-sided beatdowns in the entire series. Ichigo's new form was able to dominate Ulquiorra's Segunda Etapa, a release that was so powerful that Ulquiorra himself claimed that no other Espada had ever seen it, and even Aizen was unaware of it. Ichigo's full hollow Vasto Lorde transformation was a glimpse into his ultimate potential. In this video, I want to determine just how powerful was Vasto Lorde Ichigo. Was Ichigo truly at his most powerful here, or was this a glimpse into something greater yet to come? In this video, I'll deep dive into the true nature of this transformation, I'll analyze its capabilities, and we'll decide once and for all where this transformation ranks amongst the other powerhouses within Bleach. So without further delay, let's dive into the topic of the video. Before the video begins, only 20% of the people who actually watch my content are subscribed to the channel. If you enjoy these videos, then subscribe and stick around for more content just like this. Now let's get back to the topic of the video. Before we can analyze the power of Vasto Lorde Ichigo, we need to first establish what exactly this transformation is. The term Vasto Lorde Ichigo has become widely accepted within the fandom, and even I use it, but it's technically not accurate to what Kubo had established in the manga. Ichigo wasn't born a hollow, so he's not technically evolving through the different hollow classifications of a Gillian, Adhuchas, and a Vasto Lorde. Instead, he is a complicated hybrid being consisting of Shinigami, Hollow, Fullbring, and Quincy powers. So when Ichigo had transformed against Ulquiorra, what we're seeing isn't a Vasto Lorde hollow form, but rather the manifestation of Ichigo's inner hollow completely taking over his body. The truth about this transformation becomes much clearer following the events of the 1000-Year Blood War arc, where Ichigo learns that his inner hollow is actually his Zanpakuto spirit Zangetsu. Old Man Zangetsu, who had previously claimed to be his Zanpakuto spirit, was actually a manifestation of Ichigo's Quincy powers, and he was in fact suppressing Ichigo's true Shinigami hollow abilities. So via this explanation, it completely changes everything that we know about this transformation. This form is actually a mirror image of White, the artificial hollow created by Aizen, which had infected Ichigo's mother Masaki before he was born. We learn about this during the Everything But the Rain flashback arc. If you look at the visual similarity with the horned skull mask, the long flowing hair, the hole in the chest paired with those tribal-like markings spreading out across its body, even with the clawed hands and feet. The resemblance of Ichigo's hollow transformation to the hollow White is unmistakable, and even when Ichigo enters his inner world where he learns the final Getsuga Tensho, Tensa Zangetsu pulls out what Ichigo is afraid of, as we see his inner hollow, but he has taken on a similar appearance to Ichigo's hollow transformation. Masaki had become tainted after she was bitten by the hollow White, and after Ichigo was born, White's hollow powers had transferred from Masaki to Ichigo. These hollow powers had combined with the inherited Shinigami powers from Isshin, thus creating his inner hollow Zangetsu, a Zanpakuto spirit which represents a perfect blend of Shinigami and hollow powers. This is why Aizen was so fascinated by Ichigo and his parents, because Aizen had wanted to find a way to transcend the barriers between a Shinigami and a hollow. Ichigo's birth and his hybrid nature is as a direct consequence of Aizen's holification experiments. What we see during the fight between Ichigo and Ulquiorra is essentially Zangetsu's power manifesting through Ichigo's body. While this is still fundamentally Ichigo's own power, at this point in the story he had no control over it. This is why his inner hollow had taken over, and in my opinion he ended up demonstrating a fraction of Ichigo's full potential, which he would go on to actualize towards the end of the 1000-Year Blood War arc, especially with with that Horn of Salvation transformation, but I'll talk about that more later in the video. Now what makes Ichigo's full hollow transformation so unique is that it represents pure instinct in its rawest form. When Ichigo confronts his inner hollow during his Vizard training, Hollow Ichigo had emphasized the importance of instinct in battle, and this is exactly what happens when he takes over Ichigo's body just as he is on the brink of death against Ulquiorra. Ichigo's conscious mind had shut down and all that had remained was his primal instinct to protect. This was demonstrated by the only words that he had spoken when he had told Orihime, "I will protect you," after he had revived. So rather than this being a true Vasto Lorde transformation, it's better to be described as a full hollow Ichigo form, or a complete Zangetsu possessed Ichigo. The transformation was as a result of Ichigo's true Zanpakuto spirit taking control over Ichigo's body when he was unable to fight. If you recall Ichigo's training with the Vizards when he had subdued his inner hollow, towards the end of the training, Hollow Ichigo had said to him, "Make sure you heed this warning. If you really want to control my powers, then he needs to make sure that he doesn't get killed." During this fight against Ulquiorra, Ichigo pretty much did get killed, which is why Hollow Ichigo assumed the position of the king and Ichigo had become the horse. Now we need to clarify that this isn't a separate entity's powers that Ichigo was borrowing during this transformation, but rather Ichigo's very own powers which were at a dormant state at this point in the story. These powers were accessed in a way that his conscious mind would not have access to. So for this reason, I believe that this transformation was an example of the upper limits of Ichigo's power. This of course is with all of the restrictions removed which Old Man Zangetsu had placed upon him, along with Ichigo having harmony with his hollow powers, which is something that he was far from doing in his conscious state at this point in the story. We learn about the capabilities of Ichigo's full hollow transformation during his battle against Segunda Etapa Ulquiorra. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, this wasn't just a battle, it was a one-sided beatdown. The sheer dominance displayed is mind-boggling. Just moments before Ichigo's transformation, Ulquiorra was ragdolling Bankai Ichigo with his hollow mask activated, like he was a newly graduated Shinigami from the academy. Even Ichigo's strongest Getsuga Tensho wasn't enough to land a scratch against Ulquiorra's first release Murcielago, but now suddenly this hollow transformation is casually ripping apart Ulquiorra's Segunda Etapa like he is a piece of tissue paper. So let's break down the different combat capabilities of Ichigo's full hollow form. First there's the jaw-dropping Sero, and you can actually hear it charging up with that distinctive high-pitched whine before Hollow Ichigo had unleashed this huge red beam of destruction from between his horns. Now the sound design in this scene is incredible, as the Sero sounds fundamentally different from a regular Sero. It comes across as being way more raw and primal, and when it collides with Ulquiorra's Sero Oscuras, it results in a complete dominance. The Sero Oscuras is stated to be far more powerful than a standard Arrancar's Sero. Ulquiorra describes it as a Sero only accessible to Espada in their released forms, yet Hollow Ichigo's Sero absolutely overwhelms it without breaking a sweat, causing devastating destruction in the environment, which lights up the night sky above the dome of Las Noches. And then you have the physical strength of this form, and there's this insane moment where Hollow Ichigo is casually reaching out and tearing off Ulquiorra's left arm, as you can actually hear the flesh and bone ripping as Ulquiorra's eyes widen in shock. Hollow Ichigo has no issue with Ulquiorra's steel-like skin, which is designed as a potent defensive barrier, which he had used previously to block strikes from Bankai Ichigo. Then you have an even more brutal moment when Hollow Ichigo catches Ulquiorra's ultimate attack Lanza del Relampago with his bare hand. This glowing javelin of energy which Ulquiorra had hyped up as his ultimate weapon that he doesn't want to use at close range, Hollow Ichigo makes it look like nothing as he grabs it with his bare hand, holding it for a second as the energy flares widely as he then crushes the javelin out of existence. The look on Ulquiorra's face in this moment tells an entire story. Hollow Ichigo's regenerative abilities are worth noting too, as this transformation itself begins with healing a fatal wound that Ichigo had sustained. This is the massive hole in his chest that was created by Ulquiorra's Cerro Oscuras. This level of regeneration exceeds even Ulquiorra's high-speed regeneration, which he had specifically noted was unable to heal internal organs, yet Hollow Ichigo regenerates his entire chest cavity instantaneously. And in terms of durability, when Ulquiorra severs one of Hollow Ichigo's horns to disrupt his Cerro, the resultant explosion doesn't seem to cause any lasting damage to Hollow Ichigo. In terms of speed, Ichigo's hollow form appears to use Sonido rather than Flash Step, as noted by Ulquiorra himself. The speed that is demonstrated is extraordinary, allowing Hollow Ichigo to outpace Ulquiorra's Pesquisa and appear behind him before he could react. Remember that Ulquiorra's own speed previously allowed him to impale Ichigo before he even had a chance to register a movement. The fighting style of Hollow Ichigo is brutal, animalistic, but very efficient. There is no hesitation and there is not a single wasted movement, as he is acting out of pure instinct, channeling overwhelming aggression. It is the full embodiment of the instinct which Ichigo's inner hollow had previously lectured him about during their confrontation in his inner world. The capabilities of this form are evident when you see how completely outmatched Ulquiorra is throughout their encounter. Despite having access to his Segunda Etapa, Ulquiorra cannot land a single blow against Hollow Ichigo. Even his strongest attack is neutralized before he can use it properly. The gap in power is so substantial at this point that Ulquiorra, who embodies calm confidence, appears to be genuinely shocked and overwhelmed by Ichigo's new form. So this isn't just a matter of Ichigo's hollow form being slightly stronger than Segunda Etapa Ulquiorra, there is a complete night and day difference in both of their power. In the past, Ulquiorra was dominating Ichigo's hollow mask enhanced Bankai, but with this transformation, the power escalation results in Ulquiorra being unable to even land a single strike against Ichigo's hollow form. Now, how does Ichigo's hollow transformation compare to some of the other powerhouses within Bleach? In terms of ranking power, we know that Ichigo's hollow transformation is stronger than Segunda Etapa Ulquiorra, which is stronger than Ulquiorra's first Resurrection Murcielago, which is stronger than Ichigo with his hollow mask enhanced Bankai, which of course is stronger than Ichigo's regular Tensei Zangetsu Bankai. While yes, there's a clear progression of power between all of these forms, the difference between Segunda Etapa Ulquiorra and Ichigo in his hollow form is very substantial. Now let me draw your attention towards something very interesting. Throughout Bleach, Kubo pays particular attention to Ichigo's Shinigami Shihakusho as a visual indicator of how much remaining spiritual pressure that he has. This has been confirmed in several moments in the series, particularly in chapter 382 during a conversation between Ichigo and Unohana as they travel towards Fate Karakura Town. Ichigo reveals that the fact that his Shihakusho was only partially repaired when Orihime healed him earlier, and this is because Orihime's healing abilities are quick at healing wounds, but they are slow at restoring spirit energy. Ichigo states that he was in a hurry because Rukia and the others were getting beaten up below, so he went to fight without his full spirit energy healed. As he explains to Unohana that this is why he seems so weak right now. Unohana looks back at Ichigo visibly shocked, as she thinks if this is less than half of his Shihakusho, meaning he has only half of his spirit energy right now, she was sensing that Ichigo in his current state already has spirit energy comparable to that of a captain. She then advises Ichigo to run in front as she will restore his remaining spirit energy so that it is at max capacity before they arrive in Fate Karakura Town. Unohana even thinks to herself that if this is Ichigo's spirit energy at half of its maximum, then he may really be the savior of the Soul Society. So with this explanation firmly in our minds, we can see that during the Ulquiorra fight, Ichigo's hollow transformation was clearly operating at half of its maximum capacity due to the state of his Shinigami Shihakusho. So literally what we're seeing here isn't even the full potential of this form, but at half capacity it was still able to completely dominate Segunda Etapa Ulquiorra. It's safe to say that this hollow transformation at maximum capacity would overpower any of the individual Espada, even including Stark. Let's try comparing this transformation to other powerhouses at this point in the story. When Ichigo had activated this form, he hadn't yet fused with the Hokyoku, but he was still considered to be one of the most powerful beings in existence. Then you have Head Captain Yamamoto, who is the undisputed strongest Shinigami with a Bankai that transforms him into the sun itself. So how does Ichigo's hollow transformation rank amongst these characters? And then you have the comparisons to the forms that Ichigo has later during the Arrancar arc. Following his Dangai training, where he faces off against Aizen, he demonstrates that he has far more control over his power, and he does seem to be more powerful based on how he casually dismisses most of Aizen's attacks. However, Ichigo's hollow transformation represents raw, unrestrained power. It's a total different philosophy of power in comparison to Ichigo after his Dangai training. It is very possible that Ichigo with his hollow transformation at max capacity may well be comparable to Dangai Ichigo, but without the crucial control which Dangai Ichigo has. The hollow transformation has high levels of destructive capability, and since Ulquiorra is our only reference point here, his Lanza del Relampago demonstrated enough power to potentially destroy Los Noches entirely. This is a massive structure, so big that it takes days to walk around it. Hollow Ichigo casually neutralized this attack and displayed Cerro Blast, which caused similar levels of environmental destruction. Hollow Ichigo at his full power would easily have destructive capacity which could wipe out entire continents. It's worth noting that this transformation generated so much spiritual pressure that it affected the environment around it, causing debris to float upwards in the air. A phenomenon that we typically only see with some of the most powerful characters in the series. So Ichigo in his full hollow form at max capacity would likely rank amongst the top 10 strongest characters in all of Bleach up until that point in the story. The only clear individuals who would be superior would be Dangai Ichigo along with Head Captain Yamamoto and Aizen. And then you have the other top tier characters in the series who hadn't yet revealed their full capabilities at this point in the story. It's really fun trying to scale this transformation, as Ichigo's full hollow form is more like a nuclear explosion in comparison to other powerful characters who appear to be more like precisely targeted missiles. With Ichigo's full hollow form having more raw power, but characters like Yamamoto and Aizen possessing raw power combined with practical application, as they retain consciousness over their mind with the raw power that they possess, something that this form of Ichigo evidently lacks. While Ichigo's fight against Ulquiorra is the main showcase of this form's abilities, there are a few other times that it's appeared within the story which can help us to better understand its nature and power. When Ichigo had entered his inner world when he was trying to learn the final Getsuga Tensho, Ichigo faces Tensai Zangetsu, who pulls out the source of Ichigo's despair. This turns out to be Ichigo's inner hollow wearing the same horned mask from his fight against Ulquiorra. This confirms that the form isn't just a one-time occurrence, but it's an aspect of Ichigo's inner power. During this encounter, Hollow Ichigo removes his mask and reveals his identity before he merges with Tensai Zangetsu. The fusion between Tensai Zangetsu and his inner hollow confirms what we learn in the 1000-Year Blood War arc, that Ichigo's inner hollow and Zangetsu are two aspects of his power. Merged Tensai Zangetsu is a representation of Ichigo's true power when it's united rather than when it's fragmented. During Bleach Movie 4 Hellverse, we get another amazing showcase of Ichigo's full hollow form, which is worth mentioning even if this movie isn't canon. I do have a separate video where I explain this in detail, so do go and check that out after this video. Now, when Ichigo is dragged into hell, he undergoes a full hollow transformation again. The movie version of Full Hollow Ichigo showcases power on an insane scale. His Cerro Blasts literally tear open the gates of hell itself, something explicitly stated to be impossible by normal means. There is also an amazing moment where Yamamoto himself, one of the most powerful Shinigami, looks visibly shocked at the display, and he states that this monster has broken the chains of hell and could potentially destroy the entire world if left unchecked. The Hellverse version of Full Hollow Ichigo showcases increased durability, tanking attacks from the Guardians of Hell without flinching, and while the movie isn't strictly canon, it seems as though Kubo has specifically approved the full hollow form of Ichigo and how it would interact with Hell. A lot of fans wonder why this form never appeared again in the series following the Ulquiorra fight, and the reason for this is because of Ichigo's psychological relationship with his hollow powers. After he had witnessed what he had done to Ulquiorra and how he had injured Uryu in this form, Ichigo developed a deep-seated ultimate fear of his hollow powers. He was truly horrified by the lack of control that he had and the pure brutality that was displayed. Even though he had wanted to beat Ulquiorra, he didn't want to do so in such a manner. The fear that Ichigo developed resulted in a mental block that prevented him from accessing this form again, even to the point where Ichigo struggles to don a hollow mask later when he confronts Aizen in Fate Karakura Town. At this point in the story, the only way that Ichigo had to overcome Aizen was to learn the final Getsuga Tensho. So instead of risking losing control to his inner hollow and accepting that part of his powers, he decided to sacrifice his powers in order to defeat Aizen. Ichigo's full hollow transformation represented his lowest point within the story. This was a moment where he had lost all control over himself. From this point, Ichigo had started to learn how to control and work with his powers instead of rejecting them and being overwhelmed by them. The limited appearance of this full hollow Ichigo form makes it one of the most mysterious and impactful transformations in all of Bleach. The impact of this transformation does extend far beyond the fight against Ulquiorra, as it serves as a key turning point which alters Ichigo's relationship with his own powers, and it perfectly sets up the stage for the evolution of his powers in the remaining story arcs. We do see direct connections between this full hollow form and Ichigo's later powers, especially during the Fullbring arc. When Ichigo completes his Fullbring training with Ginjo, he appears to have these horn-like spikes over his shoulders, along with the armor that he dons being similar to the markings that appear in his full hollow form. The most significant callback to Ichigo's full hollow transformation is easily the Horn of Salvation form, which Ichigo activates during his battle against Yhwach in the 1000-Year Blood War arc. I do believe that this is the final version of the form that we had seen used against Ulquiorra. This transformation is basically the perfected version of Ichigo's full hollow transformation. He has complete control over his powers rather than being controlled by his inner hollow. The parallels are very striking as we see the single horn which visually echoes the full hollow form, and the black markings across his face, and the access to hollow abilities while maintaining his consciousness and reasoning. The Horn of Salvation form also demonstrated very similar offensive capabilities, but with far more greater precision. With this form, Ichigo was able to combine a Grand Ray Sero with a Getsuga Tensho against Yhwach. It seems like this transformation is a far more refined and controlled version of the full hollow form used against Ulquiorra. The Horn of Salvation form grants Ichigo the same raw power, but it's channeled with purpose and technique rather than just being reliant on pure instinct. It's really interesting to consider what would have happened with the evolution of Ichigo's powers if he had decided to embrace his inner hollow much sooner rather than fearing it. So yeah, that form that he had used against Ulquiorra wasn't just a momentary power up, but it was a brief preview of Ichigo's latent potential. But yeah, by the events of the 1000-Year Blood War arc, we've seen this fully actualized with the reveal of the Horn of Salvation form. So yeah, I do want to know all of your thoughts. What do you think about Ichigo's full hollow transformation? Do you think that it's as powerful as I've described in this video? Was there anything that I've forgotten to mention about this form? Let me know by continuing the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Bleach video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.